by Gareth and Bex, and I guess deciding the roadmap for the whole rebuild program, and there will be an opportunity laid out for community consultation and that sort of thing in this process. So it's not a Q&A day. No doubt there will be questions that you'll have, and by all means, after the workshop, we can, and after we finish our meeting today, I'm quite happy to take phone calls and so forth, and carry on the communication that I've always had the links open. But Gareth and Bex have put together this roadmap as a result of a discussion that Sally and I participated in with Gareth, a lady by the name of Genevieve, who was involved with the Cromwell development of their community hub, and David Scoons, who's the GM that would be leading the property section through their process. I'll just hand it over to Gareth.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'd just like to acknowledge that the 6th of February was a very, very sad day for us all. An event of this nature is really difficult for the community, especially people that invested time into before. We've even got council staff that are on committees for the call, and it was just overall very depressing day. So we'll go into the
It'd be important too, Gareth, to say that this is a big learning curve that we're embarking on.
Yes, absolutely.
No, we haven't had to recover from something as devastating as this. Ever, I don't think. I mean, we've had the flood, but to try and rebuild the heart of the community is significant.
Even so, back in South Africa, we had a few burning buildings, and it's still it's devastation.
Yeah.
And the amount of destruction, and I was really conscious of the fact that you've got businesses on the side, or we had residents in the back, the church as well. And it was about us jumping into that scenario, working as quickly as we possibly could with some engineers and safety officers, see what the best outcome would be. So yes, we moved really quickly and we made operational decisions, and that was largely based on cost. As you heard earlier with the TNPs, traffic management systems that were in place, they were really expensive because you're stopping a whole lane on a highway. So, and then of course the roads also ripped up in the back there. So they got a bit of technical issues in getting the presentation going.
And just to shed light, that was one of the main reasons the SARB came down with a lunch consultation, basically.
So because it's a safety aspect, it becomes an operational effect.
Yeah.
So it's out of the community hands,
yes.
And because Peter Kelly is fully liable for that, anything that happens as a result of the site falling down or killing anyone, he is then prosecuted in those terms.
Yeah.
So we always take up and we did. We spoke to the engineers. We said, can we do this in a good cost-saving way? And the results all came back exactly the same. Bring the site down as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably important to understand is that we had issues with the front of the building prior to the
Yeah. But sorry, just to give context, it's one of the reasons why there was no consultation on the SARB.
Yeah.
For people to David's that was the reason why. Yeah.
Sorry, Gareth, just that there was the other consideration was the impact it was having to the community, particularly the immediate neighbours, who would have had to vacate their properties once again, or potentially vacate.
Well, we actually had them vacated. So we had the business vacated and we didn't allow them to operate.
Yeah.
So, it becomes a much wider equation when you start looking into more aspects.
Yeah, 100%.
And then with the remediation of the site, to move pretty quickly to get it to a state where it's acceptable to all surrounding neighbours. You can imagine with a bit of wind and dust and, you know, you've got that soot and that bird smell going all over the place. It's not a very pleasant experience for people that are living around there. So, we've got the presentation, Lorraine. Thank you. I thought we would take down a little bit down memory lane here. Roxburgh, the Roxburgh Hall began construction in 1875. These are quick slides, Sarah, so we'll move through them very quickly. In 1918, the hall was vested to the Borough Council. There's a little bit of history. I'm not going to read everything line for line, and we will make this presentation available. The hall moved and the new building was reported opened in October, witnessed March 1931, and renovations were undertaken in decades to become the Roxburgh Entertainment Centre. So it's gone through quite an evolution. Like I said, 6th of February was a devastating day. All I remember from that day is the smell. It was the smoke just couldn't get out of my nostrils. It was really bad. What we were left with was absolute devastation. And when we flew the drones, we got all the pictures and we started looking at that, you actually realise what a big impact that fire had. Like, fire is just so destructive in every respect. But it's also the aftermath, and that's what I was talking about, the birds, the bird building, all the soot that's associated with it, and it just becomes a mess and a dirty smell. Sorry, before you click on, the good news is we managed to salvage the clock. We managed to get some plaques off there, and Bex will jump in for, she's the expert in this space, but I want to say we saved the till with some cash in it.
Yeah.
And some chocolate bars. Should probably auction those or make a fortune.
Sometimes that's safe to fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still paper on the outside.
Everything in the cupboard under the stairs was still intact.
Yeah.
You find
Never mind the sound system or the screen. The bits that we really wanted.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, sir. So the decision was made. We brought the facade down and then started cleaning up the site. Just to allow any fears, the archaeologists have been engaged in this respect. They were on site and they gave the green flag for us to proceed, because we know that it is a heritage site. So I've been in property for quite a long time, and my main concern above everything else was asbestos. When it gets activated in the fire, it becomes airborne, it becomes friable, and then we end up contaminating a much larger area. So we gave instructions to the team. They were doing testings from the earliest learning centre all the way through to the police station. Everything came back negative, so it was a non-friable product, and it was contained within the site, which was really good news. That being said, we've had full clearance certificate, and the site is deemed completely safe. I just mentioned the historical ramifications, and then with the dust mitigation, we started exploring options, because now we've dropped everything, we've remediated the site. What do we do in this time? And there's a couple of things that we can do. We can seed it and put a K-line through and get a bit of a grass growth there. Because it's very undulating and very unneat, basically, it's not going to be good growth. It's going to be a lot of weeds. And then, of course, then there's the maintenance associated with that. When you go through growing season, you then have to get people in with weed whackers, because you wouldn't be able to get a mow through the site. So Bex made a suggestion of potentially putting some gravel in there, so that'll stop all the dust from getting airborne and leave the site in a good manner. The gravel can potentially be used later once the building starts.
So we're going to have a level site.
We can't level the site until the archaeological authority is through, and that takes about 40 days. So we're
Oh, ultimately we won't be able to have.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna jump in here quickly, but I'm gonna let Bex go through all the detail on this. When we started this process, and thanks again to the amazing contractors that have been involved in this process. We asked for some prices and indications, and we were working on a worst case scenario. Josh and his crew have been absolutely fantastic in this process. In fact, everyone, from the community to the firemen to investigators, everyone has been so helpful. And we were expecting costs around about the $400,000 to $500,000 marker. You can see that we just post $200,000 at this point in time. Now this will be picked up from the indemnity payout from the insurance. So when we talk about the insurance payout, please understand there's that payout less this amount. Is there anything else?
Does it could be further invoices to come or you?
For clearing the site, we're pretty much there.
Okay.
Yeah, we've just got, so there's still, obviously the archaeological authority.
Oh, yeah, I've seen.
And then he came back and did a site visit because we needed to put a site put in.
Yeah.
So they're the only ones that
Okay.
we're still waiting for, but yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So it won't, I don't think it will be more than 250. I reckon it's probably going to be around 220, 220.
We're at 221 now.
Oh, 221?
25, 230.
Okay, yeah, so around about 230.
That's very good.
And again, thank you to all the contractors that really stepped up, and also to the Norman and your team with taking on the bricks and what it's going to look like.
Yeah, so on top of what been presented here, there's Josh put aside all the scrap metal, and that was sold to a scrap metal deal. And those funds have gone into the entertainment centre's recovery fund, a funding account that we've set up totally separate the other operational accounts we have. And that's also the one that people are able to donate to and so forth. I think it was $1,800.
Wow, amazing.
So, and what Josh has also done, and Josh and Robert have also done, is kept the bricks aside and put them into a stockpile up at the race course for us. And the plan is that RESIP will not only investigate, but facilitate the sale of those bricks. Again, those funds will go into the recovery account.
Yeah.
So you plan to sell those bricks and then reuse them in a rebuild?
We haven't really worked out how that's going to work yet, but there's a stockpile of bricks there, and the idea is that some will be able to be used in rebuilding as landscaping, for outdoor areas or something, or people might want to buy them for home or whichever, but we haven't had the time to sit.
So where are the traffic management fees from the 6th to the 14th?
Sorry?
Yeah, traffic management fees only start on the 14th.
I would imagine there's a mistake in there.
Yes, there would
Rather
be a
than
typo.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Stack.
No, because when I spoke to them, they said, no, that's everything.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So regarding the bricks, one of the suggestions might be to build a non-structural superficial wall with the bricks as a bit of a feature, whatever the design is that. And so open to all options and haven't started in at this point.
So, and this is where the community starts, I guess, being able to contribute with these ideas they might have a desire to have some of the bricks themselves, I don't know. But we're sort of setting up the entertainment centre committee to take more people on board to be a part of this process and be the voice of the community, rather than 1,000 voices feeding into Gareth and Bex. If we do it through one body, And people are more than welcome to join us. It's not just about the group that are there now. We need more help.
Yeah.
And more support, more input.
So, important question is the insurance. We've got 6.4 million insured. Like I said to you a little bit earlier, that will, the remediation costs come out of that equation.
Does that include GST? 6.4?
No. Yeah, it's exclusive to GST. The, what I do want to say though is, and I think we're going a little bit later in another slide, we were talking about what that payout looks like. But 6.4 million is a capped price. The process that we go through with insurance companies is we hand the plans over. We hand over even the latest remediation that we did, which is over $500,000 price tag to it. We hand that all over to the insurance. They then QS it. If it comes back at a higher rate than what's currently insured, normal practice is they write a check out, or they say, go and build something, but your payout will be the $6.4 million, right? Sometimes they say, go build something, and let's say we manage to bring in a brand new building for $5.5 million. That's the money that they pay out, right? So that's the way it works.
Or explain what a QS is, because you'll have people on live stream that are going,
Absolutely.
what the hell is that?
Yeah, so quantities are basically, they can build a site with a spreadsheet. So they calculate how many bricks, water, labour, reinforcing, all that is that's associated with that building, and how much it will be to rebuild that building.
At a high level, what's included is the air conditioning included, is the actual stage, is that?
Everything's included.
Talking about
Okay, so the items in the kitchen, they part of this, the ovens and the fridges.
So anything fixed asset would be considered yes, and then there's separate insurance for consumables. So cutlery, cups, that type of stuff. Yeah,
That's on top of 6.4 or?
yes, it is. We had 40,000.
45,000.
45,000 for that type of stuff, and then
So Risa had $450,000 worth of cover for the improvements that we've sponsored over time.
450.
Yeah, or 440 something or other.
But
So that was grand piano, the microphones, some of the tables and chairs, all the seating in the auditorium, the new sound system, the new screen.
So you'll be getting a separate payout to reinstate some of those things.
Sorry?
So that's separate from the 6.4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So totally separate. I mean, we put this in place back in 2018. Prior to that, the assumption was that it was all covered by council's insurance until I asked the question and found that none of those assets were covered. So we put in some place, put in place some cover that was affordable. And that was costing us about $3,000 a year, $2,500 a year. So thankfully we did have cover in place. When I put the asset register together in the last month, the tally was about 1.2. So we were underinsured, but that included replacing all 256 seats, a new projector. Just insane amount of money. So the claim's been accepted, but it hasn't been quantified. They're going through that process at the moment. Like Gareth was saying, they do have their ways and means of sponsoring their payouts. And it may be that we won't get paid out for anything until we go to buy new.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't buy new until we know where we're going. So it could be a fairly drawn out process. Doesn't mean we're going to get 450k in the hand, but put in the bank and invest until such time as the new building was built. And if we do have a cinema in there, what equipment will need.
Why is that why is that put a use a cinema on there?
Well, the community's got to agree that that's what they want.
Okay, right.
So go next slide.
I mean, we've got a clean sheet.
So we can actually bounce the slide. This is actually just everything that I've spoken about. So we then go into procurement options, and do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so basically this is an overview on what steps we need to complete next to get the most from our procurement process. We think we should do some market engagement and actually just see who's available, what potential suppliers we can call upon, what their interest is in the project. For this particular project, we think that doing sort of 30-minute interviews with potential suppliers, get their gauge, get their interest, and then move on to the next phase.
So yeah, that's pretty good. And we haven't been prescriptive in what procurement process we'll follow. We think this is the best way to get engagement out of the communities by doing it this way. And from there, we'll get a result, and then we'll be able to identify procurement method on how we're going to get this project underway. Good with that?
But that's independent of what the design might be.
So there's a whole lot of ways we can do this, right? And that's why we're talking about the 30-minute interviews, because some architects will come there and go, as an example, will go, I've measured the site, here's a concept plan, this is what I'm thinking, and then how they're going to deliver it, type of thing. It's really good for us to see all those ideas. Then that comes to life, and we can start actually visualizing what the site might look like. Then we'll go out to the community and say, hey, there's a couple of proposals out there. This is what they look like.
So what are the chances of like somebody from the valley, people with connections on the valley, for example, people who've lived here since the era, their sons gone to school here, is an architect, can we throw as much out to our local community as possible, because the local community is involved.
So what we will do that. So we'll do it. We always go for open tenders, and the reason we do that is it's a free and fair market. In local government, we don't issue just things because they're local, but there is a percentage on the weighted attribute that will contribute to being local. So if you someone from Christchurch and you've never been there before, you don't get your 10% scenario. And if you're a local boy that lives in Roxburgh, you tick the box and get the 10% extra to your weighted attributes.
Yes.
What we don't want to do, and I'm really conscious of this, is limit the exposure. Sometimes you can get someone out of Christchurch, Auckland, or whatever, that would come there and blow the community away with these brilliant ideas.
Yeah. Don't
limit yourself. So at least let us have a look at those so we get the best value for money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, John? So we can go through all of these. These are supposed to be hidden slides, but I'm gonna, this is just the different procurement options. No, I mean, look. This is the general.
Yeah, so this is just saying we'd make the budget available to any potential suppliers. We're getting pretty much what you've just discussed with you.
Yeah. Bex and I did do some slides on the different procurement options, but that's actually getting too much ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
That's why we put them into the hidden slides. So we're quite fortunate. We're busy building the Memorial Hall now in Cromwell. This is a 40-seater bespoke cinema. This is the type of things we can use as ideas. And what's nice about this, and I find Jez makes full permission for this one, is it's all the knowledge that is being produced. We can get great estimate of costs associated with this. We can get all the engineering drawings associated with this. So it becomes more of a fast track process if the community decide this is the type of road that they want to go down. You talk about this.
So this was, the pool that's recently been built in Luggett. They've done a really awesome job. It is, meterage wise, it's a lot smaller. It has about a 200 person capacity, but it's also a passive build. So it was just something I thought I'd throw in there to just say, look, there are options. Whether that's something we would be interested in. They have really good use of their spaces. So they use that main pool for, it's called sprung floor.
Yeah.
So you can do sports and activities in there, but then they also have weddings, they have community meetings, they've got chairs like tucked away in one of the side rooms that they pull out. It's a really well utilised space.
So I'll explain passive building for those you don't know. Is they take a building that they design it around being the most efficient that it possibly can be. So it's the least amount of electricity used, the least amount of mechanical ventilation, and it's all about this building sustaining itself as it moves forward. I know the engineers that are on this project. It was a very challenging space to be on, and I think that's why I've got such a big price tag associated with it. It's something not new to New Zealand, but I think in this scale, it is quite new to the market. Yeah. There you go.
What was the floor space?
200. Oh, I can't remember the floor space. 480, I want to say. off the top of
That's
my
half the size of what we
Yes.
had.
Yeah.
So is this a council-owned building?
No, oh, sorry, it is, eh?
Please.
It's done, sorry, not as the others, yeah.
So the passive nature of it add to the cost.
But your maintenance going forward on this building and your operational cost is really low.
Yeah.
And that's the way you skew the equation.
Yeah.
So, you know, every 10 years, you can imagine your maintenance on a building goes up because obviously you get deterioration in a building. This one actually sustains itself for quite a long time. Then Peter mentioned to knowing the Mana Kikia
Yeah.
community hub. Got that one second.
Almost
time.
that.
Yeah.
Mana
Mana Kikia, thank you.
Well,
This was a community-based project, and I'm going to say exactly the same thing again. I take my hat off. This community got behind this project, and this is what they made happen.
Right.
Council assisted, like in great manners. We've given $1 million, and then we said we'd pick up the shortfall as well. But the rest of this bill, in the design, in the architects, in the community, all the community. So this just goes to show what you can do when you come together as a group. You, as Norm said, you elect a group that's going to talk on your behalf of the community, because that's the easiest, most efficient way to do it. And you move forward with designs, ideas, and get it out to the community in that way.
So what's in that top?
So this is,
What are the spaces?
it's a basic building, right? So there's space for a toy library, there's a supper room.
You can zoom on that slide, could you?
And it's
New
the
rugby
rugby,
club as
rugby.
well,
club.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
So what are they doing with the old rugby club in the building? Is
That's
that on the same site? Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be demolished. And no, it's not on the same site. Yeah. So this is the new site that we chose it. And the reason, so that we went through a little bit of a journey with the community. And not only council, but one of the community members as well raised why we're building on the same site as the existing rugby rooms. And that's why they chose the new site, because it was way better, right? It had more sunshine. It was just a better location for all aspects of the building. And then you can associate a bit of smart design with that. So you can have when the sun's setting, rising and setting, and how you can utilise mechanical ventilation in that respect to get the best out of it.
That's about 5.5 mil, this one, I believe, is that right?
So there's a report going to council next week. What I'm going to say is, I've got to remember which is confidential it is. What I'm going to say is that the prices that came back, the community got behind this bill, and the prices came back was substantially less than what we actually anticipated. So I did an estimation in this building and I did come up with 5.5 million. It is less than that. So, honestly, that is community pulling together.
So how long did that process take from to get from where, clean sheet to design to putting the coffee on?
So this, when I got involved, we were just getting into the inception stage of this. So the community had been granted $1 million that would be associated with this. And at that time, we thought that the project would be about $2 million. So we were saying third from council, a third from funders, and a third from self-raising money. And that was in 2020. I just started with council there, and we should be going to construction at the end of this year.
And construction time was 12 months?
12 months. But on a build like this, I'd probably go, I'd say 12 months to be safe. You might get 2 or 3 months, a little bit, just depending on whether you might be able to bring in a little bit. So, but it's a different project, right? There was only a little bit of seed funding from council, right?
Yeah.
This project, we know, and if you take those figures as gospel on exactly what we're going to be getting, you've got just post $6 million for a build.
Yeah. And we've got
plus
the money in the bank already.
plus in this build, there was a lot of community organisations to work together to figure out the right result, whereas that's not so much.
So, I mean, our journey can do anywhere going by those between 3 and 5 years.
So
So,
if this,
yeah,
if this,
Sorry, is that
yeah.
going to be council owned building?
Yes, it is.
So you can get fundraising for council owned property.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, funders take that into account. So it's just as the CODC application to OCT for this financial year.
Ah, yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So, and just to answer that, the reason we own council building is because we put our expertise into this. If the trust decided they didn't want to be in this business anymore, they came out of it, we know we have a really solid, good building that can work with the community and we can pass it on to another trust. We'll take it over and run it internally. The community will not lose the building. That's sometimes, and it happens in the past, and it's just one of those things. Community run projects, they don't turn out the way they meant to be. The building gets subletted into us, and then it becomes a huge cost factor to remediate the building. This way, we know we've got a sound building moving forward. So it just gives the confidence, and the community should be behind this as well, because council's not going anymore. Council's an entity that will carry on. I think that was our last slide. So this is a workshop. No decisions get made. We've thrown a few ideas up there on how we can, produce this work. What's the quickest way we can do it, and involve the community 100% from start to finish. So as council staff, we are just seeking direction from you guys to proceed.
So going back to your 30-minute talk with contractors to see what their interest is, and they may or may not present proposals to you that they think fit what you want. Why, as a sort of a question, why can't you do it the other way around, where you go and ask the community what we want or what they want, and then take proposals to and field contractors out about your own proposals rather than the other way around?
Yeah.
Contract proposal going to the community and going, oh, this is what some contractors we talk to think you might want.
So there's a couple of constraints in that respect. I am talking post community engagement.
Right. Okay.
That would happen, but there are a couple of constraints in that respect. The insurance payout is a light floor. So we get, sometimes they allow a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
So that's why I showed a picture of a bespoke cinema instead of the 260 that was in bus. If the community come back and say, how we want a rooftop pool, that type of stuff, and I'm just, stupid examples, but that's reality. The insurance is not going to pay out.
Yeah.
So in that respect, you are constrained on the site to give a limited activity that you can go moving forward. How much input the community has in that is, it'll be from the start.
Insurance are wanting you to build, well, would like to,
That's
would
the
pay us
question.
entirely if you were building a cinema of some capacity in a town hall.
Usually they give us leeway. Yeah, usually they give us leeway, so they don't go, we want to see a 200 seater, right? But this is yet to be determined. That's why I said to you, this is going through this process. But sometimes they give you leeway and they say, as long as you build a cinema, doesn't matter what size it is. Because you can imagine a cinema, 200 seater cinema of those days would have probably, let's call it $2 million to build that in those days, in today's money. A new high-tech bespoke cinema now for a 40-seater would probably cost you $2 million. So that's why they can associate that sort of license.
So you're saying that you'll go to the you want to, in some form, go to the community soon, get some key building blocks as to potential inclusions, and then go to the architects?
Potentially. Then we see what the community wants.
Yeah, because I can't see how you can go to the architects if you haven't been to the
Sorry,
community.
that was just council's process. So that's why I said,
Preceded by community.
correct. So Norman said that we'll start a stakeholder group.
Yeah.
So get different representations from the community, and then you know, they can be between 6 and 10 people, basically. So you keep it nice and tight, and then decisions do get made. Because otherwise you're just going to go around and around in circles.
Is there any plan in council to have like a full community meeting? And to be quite honest, you probably need two, one at night so that most people can get there, and one probably mid-morning so that the older people who don't go out at night can get there. Because there has been, you know, I've had serious feedback from people that the communication has been terrible, and every time something happens, it always comes back to bad communication. And people really want to hear from council.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
and this
they-
will be part of the
I know,
discussion
you know,
from today.
Yeah. So,
And as I said this morning, it's taken a while to bring back accurate knowledge.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
share inaccurate knowledge.
Yeah.
Is more devastating than the bloody fire itself.
yeah,
So from
Say
here,
6 weeks, right?
yeah,
6 weeks.
from here,
Yeah.
I would suggest that you're right, we do need to have an open public meeting.
Yeah.
And it's information sharing, and you know, like the night we had on December 8th, I think it was, where people, we had a structured level of information we wanted to share, but there was also a Q&A involved in it. And what I'm suggesting is, out of that first meeting, there'll be an agreement around how the stakeholder group will be shaped.
Yeah.
And it's going to take this board probably to facilitate that meeting rather than council staff.
Absolutely.
okay, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
And so, and it may be that Gareth and Bex are asked to come along and present.
Well, we would be. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might even be the next iteration of this to that meeting. But today we've just got to, I guess, agree that process and come to understand exactly what we're dealing with in terms of a timeline. Like if we want to have that site populated in 2028, for example, start working back. We can't be sitting on our hands deciding what the thing should look like from the outside. It's more about what facilities we want within. What it looks like from the outside is the architect's problem. It's not the community. Finer points that we can contribute to, but it's about how we gear ourselves up in a united front right from day one. And the five of us will sit here today and go, let's have a meeting before the end of March, so it isn't too far away, or in the second week of April. And this is where we want to start that gathering information from the community. around what we need. So we need to communicate to the community exactly what we're expecting out of that first meeting.
Yeah.
So they come along with ideas, not a blank sheet of paper.
So if
Does
there's
that
a,
make sense?
so if there's a stakeholder group, which I think sounds great, we have to decide the composition of it, the selection of those people, the terms of which we could do internally here, but then we need to know what are the terms of reference of that group. You know, what is the expectation of what will be the outcomes of their consensus, and how do they interface with the council, and what's the council's involvement, who calls the shots, basically. You know, if the stakeholder group say we want this and the council go, no, we don't want one of those, we want this. How does that, you know,
So usually, we set up a board for the Memorial Hall, which was a project advisory group that has council members on it, and then a couple of board elected members. And then we went out wider to external stakeholders. So I think we had 5 or 6 external stakeholders that represented the whole community for what that Memorial Hall looked like. So as an example, Museum, RSA, Fine Time Theatre, the CCT, which is the Cromwell Community Trust, and Old Cromwell was in there. So those are the type of external stakeholders. But your primary board or group that you do does have terms of reference and conditions, because what you want to do is you want to keep this system moving forward.
Have you got access to those terms of reference?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to share all this stuff.
That'd be good.
That will be a report on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you got, reason you want to show?
I just find it interesting that the designer can pitch to us their ideas of it's about like it's send back. Yeah.
So,
We'll work on that.
no, we didn't say that. The designers, you guys put your ideas first, and then it comes back to us.
so we form the group, and then the group then has discussion with all these people here, you know, elects who they want to be their leaders and members, and then you decide what are the core inclusions, and then that group interfaces with the council and says, okay, here's the core things that we want to have in these designs.
Yeah, so elected members from council will probably be David Scoons, would definitely be the sponsor of the project, and then either Bex or myself, or both of us, just depends, and then majority of you guys. So you're elected definitely.
Because you have a lot more community involvement if it's a community project and council sort of like.
So all we're doing is supporting. Yeah, we're just supporting and keeping things on track. Yes.
I mean, it's important to understand that a lot of the constraints won't come from council nor from the community, but from the way that the funding out of the insurance pay out.
Yeah, so as soon as we know that equation, we'll share it. And we'll know exactly what you have to work with magistrates.
Okay, so what's the date today? It's the 20th.
If you give us direction, we'll come back with a formal report
Yeah, that's right.
and a resolution on the way forward.
Yeah, if we've got 10, 11 days till the end of the month. At the middle of April, be realistic for you to have received more information from
Well, we anticipate with it.
for us to be gathering as a group with our first public meeting.
So are we?
Quite time.
Yeah.
It's quite time.
To be honest, I'm asking the question because it's sort of like,
I think what you need to do is you need to line it up with community board meetings. And we need 2 weeks prior to that to get a paper together to formalise it.
To formalise the stakeholder group.
Well, so we have to have papers written 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
How do we go about formalising a stakeholder group, I suppose?
well, so, I was still looking at us formalising the stakeholder group at the same meeting is that you communicate this again,
Right.
but to a
So we're
bigger
not a
audience.
paper. Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think that, there will be a few people watching it online, but not reaching everybody. So I was going to give them the opportunity to come along again.
Yeah.
And listen to the discussion again with, I mean, everyone in the room will go away from here today and be thinking about how that process is going to work. And it can be, the next session could be more interactive.
Yeah. And hopefully we've got the hardline and insurance there.
Yeah, so would it be prudent for us to be aiming for the middle of April? And realistic?
Looking at some dates now.
Oh,
Yeah, so we're just reviewing this, which has got dates for your LTP consultations.
Yeah, I'm not here.
And on the 15th of April, you have a meeting at the Roxburgh Library.
There's a lot of stuff on the belly.
So this is this discussion we've had about crossing over and running over each other,
Building materials.
which I think we want to be quite cautious of.
So whatever date we land on, we'll have to look at what else is going on around that time. The expectation is that we have another public information session, slightly more interactive than what it is now. The next stage would be the community formalising its stakeholder group and setting an initial engagement with yourselves around what the picture's looking like then.
Well, yeah, Rebecca.
I think they can align.
Yeah.
So I think that Gareth will be pulling together a paper to formalise what he's saying to you
Yeah.
today, asking for you guys to recommend that that is the process.
Oh, okay.
And alongside that, you guys can be having a conversation about who, so his report doesn't need to list the members.
No, we could just vote in them.
Sorry, I thought that was just taking.
And so you can be working on those things side by side.
Yeah.
So, and it might be by the time of the meeting on the 1st of May that you actually have, you're closer about where those are, but it doesn't, and you can add that as part of the meeting, as the recommendation at the meeting. So it can be a side by side.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No.
I'm glad you said that.
So what I was thinking that we have another session like this, but with a bigger
For the public,
audience
yeah.
and more interactive.
And
Before-
in the evening.
Whichever, but before you formalise your paper and take direction from us.
Yeah. But what we'll do is we'll write a paper to be formalised for the 1st of May.
Yeah.
Which will be, and all we'll say is instead of naming the members, we'll members to be voted in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that way we can get the paper, the agenda and everything published.
Because that paper's due on the 10th of April.
Yeah.
So that, you know, when he's talking about those timeframes, it's 2 weeks away that he needs to write that paper by.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by side by side. So he'll just have the paper, which is the skeleton.
Right.
You'll have the public meeting in the interim, and then by the time you have your meeting, your formal meeting around this, those things should be hopefully lining up.
So it's up to us then to set a date to get together post the 10th of April.
But
No,
doesn't use the
Or before,
paper.
or before.
It can be before.
Or
Can be
Between now and your next community board meeting.
Yeah.
Once we've had a meeting with the public,
anyway.
inform them and then
Confusing already.
help identify.
Would
who
it
those
be,
stakeholders
would we want to know at that meeting though, what, going back to your memorial,
Yeah,
What?
In terms
we'll
of
want to know that, no, we'll want to know going into that meeting so the community knows what the makeup of that stakeholder group looks like it'll be council staff of X number.
Yeah.
Community board representation of X number and open to X number of interested parties outside of that.
And the reset committees.
Yeah, well, that would.
Yeah.
So there's a,
So do we need guidance? Who's deciding what stakeholder group?
Oh, it's you guys decide to start.
You were the decision maker.
Yeah.
You'll get recommendations from staff.
Yeah.
Which would
Could
be,
you,
don't have 30 stakeholders
yeah,
because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
all right.
so could you, the one you listed before, could you like, follow up maybe what that looked like? Yeah.
I can show you what
Yeah,
that looked
yeah.
like in
Yes.
that area.
Yes,
You guys can make.
Yeah.
something this-
yeah, just to invite.
And
So you've got a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be handy.
So in terms of getting people to a meeting, I mean, there's a long-term plan meeting on the 8th at 5:30 of April.
Yeah,
Now, would it be possible to combine the two and have this meeting after the long-term plan meeting?
information overload.
Well,
But
this very
will it be the same amount of information, whether you've got to go to one meeting or two? I'm saying, trying to get people to a meeting.
I think is the information session a drop in or is it actual formalised?
So the one that Mark's referring to is the evening session.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a plan as to what that might look like. But I would recommend that it's an addition to the meeting that's already there, because the timeline's already, not as in if you were going to do it. you'd-
7:30.
Yeah, oh, absolutely,
Added a
absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
You can have it one at
Because
7:30.
if you're going to try and get people to the 8th meeting on the 8th, you're going to try and get people to another meeting on the 10th or 11th or 12th, you know?
And then that's a really valid point.
The best time for people to have a meeting in the area is 7:30 onwards, so you can have your LTT from 5:30 to 7:30 and then do this meeting from 7:30 onwards.
Yeah.
You know, because there's almost nothing in the long-term plan for the Teviot Valley anyways there.
Well, you've got the.
You've
the
got
whole
some pretty
buildings
significant things in
And
there.
the
Yeah.
pools,
The swimming pool,
swimming pool.
water.
Yeah.
So is that a plan?
I'm happy with that.
Does that work?
What time?
Yeah, look, so I'm just looking at my calendar. I won't be around. David will,
Yeah, I won't
I
be here.
need to check with David if he's available.
Yeah.
Dylan will be available.
I am,
Bex,
yeah.
Bex will have
Oh.
to check with me as well.
I'm back on the 9th, not on the 8th.
Whatever you guys decide, council, as council will make it through.
So we can have this discussion again and firm up that date.
Yep, that's right.
And map the final details. And I think we've landed somewhere where we need to land in terms of, giving confidence that there is going to be some significant engagement with the community. Understanding of the process and starting to develop our thinking and our, implementation process. We won't get all the answers all at once because
No.
it was,
What we can do is those slides that we didn't show today, that'll probably be the right time where we can actually start saying, these are your different procurement methods that you can utilize. Just to inform you guys a little bit.
Yeah. That's good. Anyone got any questions?
What's the possibility of just floating an idea of talking light in the building and the theatre and the dance hall and the kitchen and everywhere else? What's the thought on let's get a building, council come up and we get together and do a big building, same footprint. And have insurance people have that for their plans would be something like maybe a theatre, possibly 250, 300 theatres, separate ward in, kitchen, similar sort of idea, but just come up with a building. And then we, the community, and like Risa and whoever else, and then a working group get together and go, right, this is what we want to put inside this shell. We've got a shell, we can get people in there or whatever, be it through school performances, Gold Star, or whatever else, and get a shell up and then design it from there internally, how we see fit sectionally as we, the community, can afford it.
So to get there, Stephen, we need to be able to get ourselves prepared for that. Understand completely what you're saying, and hopefully that's how it's going to roll.
Well, sounding today, it's like sounding is what it is. You get a theatre, you get this, whatever else. But if we need a bigger building, it's going to be really expensive. There's other options. There's lots of options out there rather than.
So the journey that we're going on,
that can be done, whether we do a total construction, be it just a big building and then work from there, rather than building the whole thing as a theatre complex as we go, if we want theatre through consultation. I, for one, want one. I think we should be 300 seats, and that's also a benching room, whatever else. There is plans already drawn on the original footprint, drawn up locally, and they are really good. So we need to really get that local input, and I mean everyone, not just a little select group, cherry picking who we want.
Oh, but that's up to you guys.
That's where I come from, yeah.
Yeah, you guys have a chance to bring as many people to your meeting as you possible, and that's 100%. And look, I've been in construction a long time.
Yeah.
The logic is sound. It's not cost effective that way, but if that's what the community wants.
Yeah.
Would insurance pay it fully
Don't know.
on the shell of a
So
building?
that's, don't know, and that's kind of where you need to, you know,
For
that's the process. And
Yeah.
hopefully at the next meeting, we've got a hard line from insurance. And let's say, well, the best case scenario is, here's a check, guys, then I'm going to go for gold, right?
Well, that's what insurance said. I actually thought. the
Depends if
insurance-
it's nominated
In case
replacement.
we.
No, like, let's say for argument's sake, they say, go for it, build the building. And it comes in at $5 million. That's your pay. You don't get 6.4 million and then it's $1.4 million in your pockets. It doesn't work that way. But if they take their stance that they say, no, we're going to give you a full pass, you go away and do whatever you have to do, that might be an option that they might give us. Great. But at least we'll know that status of play at the next meeting, hopefully.
And are you saying that's what it is, meeting, or hopefully, you know, that's
Yeah.
where it's gonna go?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're getting people like Dennis Patrick, but I mean, the kitchen in that hall was nice because it was new, but it was just shocking to work in. And getting people like Dennis on board and the women in the valley that have worked in all the kitchens and all these halls and stuff like that, getting them together to work on the design. So not everything needs to be done by an architect.
So architects, yeah, but architects usually go, you know, that's where it is. Then we're getting professionals that actually design and build the kitchens. They engage with stakeholders and go, right, what are your wants and needs? And they bespoke it out for you.
That's very well.
Yeah.
So those are excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to almost turn that on, get a little bit and get people going, this is what we.
The land is a L shape, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so how much of that land and how much of that L shape might be available for building? I'm not saying you want to put a building over that whole land, but is it open there as to what we?
I mean, effectively, if you're going to be breaching boundaries, like if you're too close to the boundary.
Oh, no,
you
yeah.
get a consent to get that done.
But within the L, like at the moment, it was basically a straight building, but could we put an L-shaped building in and utilise the car park for some of the building? If it's,
Yeah, you could push the building back and have front yard.
yeah,
You've got the L-shaped work.
yeah. Okay.
Be lovely.
So you could have a nice courtyard at the front if you wanted.
Absolutely.
Can I just say, I think you're getting miles ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
I would like to see the PowerPoint shown somewhere where the people of Roxburgh that aren't here and won't be here for the next meeting, because not everybody will be, where they can see that. And also a way of them communicating that isn't in a meeting, whether it's an email or a phone number, or maybe you publish the members of the stakeholders group, and maybe a couple of them can put their phone number out and you can ring and say, I would like this, I would like that. But I do think it's up to the community to decide how they want their building done. And you need to get it out there so everybody's covered.
So you want this PowerPoint out?
Yeah.
It's already up.
It's already.
So just knowing, so that people know how to actually,
Maybe put a thing in the.
because I wouldn't have done.
How long for? Is it online?
Once it goes on, it's live now, and it's impact now. Yeah, definitely. And
Maybe it will be put in the bulletin as well, so that.
Yeah, that would be good. It's not everybody that was online.
Yeah. We find that on the Teviot Valley Facebook page.
No, but as elected members, you can share it. So council can, well, actually, are we on it? Oh, we can. Okay, sorry. No. We that's right, we tag the page
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So just to recap, we are gonna meet again on April the 8th.
And you won't be here?
But you won't be
I
here,
won't be here, no.
but maybe we should think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one should be here.
Yeah.
I'm away from the 2nd to the 8th. Yeah.
So you could probably take that offline and just
Yeah.
provide your dates.
Mm.
When would suit you?
Oh, the 9th.